Way back in 1974, the game Dungeons and Dragons was released. And since then, it's been played in living rooms and in comic book stores around the world. Lately, though, the game has drawn many new fans who are turning to Dungeons and Dragons to escape a real-life monster, COVID-19. Our own LA Times Today editor, Laura Hockley, took a break between playing games to explain why it's now enjoying a renaissance.
Hi. Should we play some D&D?
Oh, yeah.
I've been playing D&D for a while. An old coworker of mine was my first DM, and she got me into it. And then my husband totally ignited that spark because he's been playing for a long time, and he had all these books and all these maps and stuff I could look through. And then when COVID hit, I really started hitting D&D pretty hard because what else was I gonna do?
As he approaches your group in an exasperated tone, please, 2 of my guardsmen have been captured. I need your help.
While it doesn't sound like it would be very collaborative, because it's just, whoever's in charge telling a story and then you guys are in that story, your characters will really influence the story because you are the storyteller. Your story can adapt and change as the characters adapt and change.
You guys all look to each other, knowing exactly what you have to do, and get your things together and prepare to head out of the door.
I quickly finished my pint first.
And I thought that nerds were the people that joined randomly online. I was like, oh yeah, I play D&D, but I play with my friends, like my real friends. And then I ran out of real friends to play with, so I started joining random groups online, and now they are some of my best friends.
Laura, no matter how much you try, you won't get an Emmy for D&D. It doesn't exist.
I think there's been a really big influx, though, with online lately, because we've had all these new services and websites and tools to use to make online gaming so much better than it ever was before. Because your games look like a video game. Like you do the character art and the set, and you put in props that even match all the different character outfit. So would you then make the argument, could you make the argument that online gaming is better than in person?
I think online definitely offers a very cool and unique tool set to the tabletop gaming space. It definitely allows the game to be a lot more actually game-like.
Oh, great.
I didn't realize how small my bubble had become before I started playing with all my online friends. I love my friends in real life, but they grew up like me, and they live in a neighborhood like me, and they do a job like me. And now I have friends all around the world. A couple people I started gaming with in Ireland recently just started playing because COVID.
I just graduated as well, so that kind of gave me a bit of a structure because I had assignments on certain days, but after that I really didn't have all that much of a structure, except for the fact that every Saturday we had a session of D&D, kind of, something to fill your time when you're not doing anything else. It's something and it's really, really fun, to be honest, especially giving the characters kind of a way to interact with the world. It's really kind of then collaborating together to bring this world to life.
I'm just gonna take my great axe and do a giant overhead swing. 11.
11? Barely doesn't hit.
That's all right. Even though I missed, could I wrap around behind him?
Yeah, absolutely.
There's 4 of us, and none of us are paying attention to our phones. Sure, we're on a screen, but we're on a shared screen. And I don't know any other hobby where I'm completely focused for 4 hours. I mean, there was 5 people completely focused for 5 hours. But with D&D, I need to figure out a problem. And, my friends' lives depend on it, kind of.
If you want to be in the front, be my guest.
I'm a bard, that's what I do. I save people. I've started games on Friday recently, right after work, and I think there is no way that I'm gonna be able to focus on this. I'm way too focused on work to be able to concentrate on anything that's not real or work. And 10 minutes in, I'm completely immersed. I'm completely in another world, and that blows my mind because I'm sitting at the same desk that I was just working at. And 4 hours later, and we've done some fantastical adventure, I am completely immersed, and I've forgotten all about work, and I can't until Monday. And there's no way I could do that without D&D, which is great because I really, really wholeheartedly, very nerdily believe that this is the best game in the whole world.
Thanks, Laura. Looks like fun. And I recently spoke with LA Times staff writer Sarah Parvini, who's written about the game's resurgent popularity. Sarah, it's great to see you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
When did you start playing Dungeons and Dragons?
I started playing when I was a little kid, 10 or so. It's possible I was younger. My brother is about 10 years older than I am.
And for people who've never played Dungeons and Dragons before, walk us through how it works.
Basically, it's a tabletop role playing game. And originally, you had your pen and paper and your physical set of dice that you would use to play, and some maps, and some people play with figurines. But now it's moved online. The key of this, though, is that so much of the game is determined by the roll of the dice and the dungeon master who is leading you through the game, as well as your own imagination. It is a world that is basically conceived in everyone's mind, and you do your best to act it out.
I think we saw a lot of it, those of us who didn't play it growing up, on Stranger Things, right? The kids are always in the basement playing Dungeons and Dragons. Tell us about some of the characters that, the roles that people are playing.
Sure. You're exactly right about Stranger Things, and I think that's part of the reason why it's been so popular in recent years. But you can play all kinds of characters. You can be a human, they're kind of known as the jack of all trades. You could be an elf or a dwarf or a gnome, and you can just have a good time for a little bit and get away from the real world.
And Sarah, they used to send you these books when you bought the actual physical game that sort of helped you construct sort of the basics of the adventure, knowing that every throw of the dice, depending on what that person chose to do, would take you, you'd never play the same game twice, basically, even if you were all following the same booklet. Is that right?
Absolutely. You can have the same sort of spine to an adventure, but really depending on what you roll, things could be very different for different groups of people.
And there are like podcasts where people just watch other people playing.
Yeah, absolutely. And they're very popular. So you have streams like Critical Role, which have been huge, not only in inspiring people to play, but helping to show people that it's not as complicated as it might sound when someone explains to you how you're supposed to be playing Dungeons and Dragons.
We know from watching the Lakers in the NBA bubble in Orlando, if nothing else, that gaming has taken on a really big sense of importance during the pandemic. People are connecting through gaming. It's really helping, eat up some of the quarantine hours. You talked to a lot of people playing D&D. Tell us what you said they were getting out of it and how that game was helping them through the pandemic.
Yeah, absolutely. You hit it on the head there. It is helping people through the pandemic. It's a way for people to gather with their friends without being worried about exposing anyone or getting sick. It's a way to kind of recreate the gatherings you might have had at someone's house on a Friday night, whether it was to play D&D or it was to just actually hang out and not play any games. And for some people, I think it's also just a great sense of escape. So, for 2 or 3 hours, one night a week or multiple nights a week, you not only get to be somewhere else, you get to be someone else. And for those few hours, there is no pandemic.
It is the ultimate escape in that way, and yet keeps you connected, which is also so important. I have to ask you a question. Are you still playing Dungeons and Dragons?
So actually, when I wrote this story, I had not played in a very long time, but I have some friends who in recent years, or maybe even just this past year since the pandemic, have picked up playing the game. And after the story came out, we were all talking about it, and we decided, why not have our own group where we start to play? And so we just finished our second session, and it's been a lot of fun.
Sarah Parvini giving us all some great ideas. What an interesting story. Thank you so much for sharing.
Of course. Thanks for having me.